Hi! So today, this is just going to be kind of a public service announcement to tell you, the aspiring detectorist, how to dig plugs in the most efficient and neatest way possible so as to do as little damage to the ground. There are 4 different ways to recover a target, and I'm going to show you them all. But first, let's go over the equipment you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need a detector. You're going to need a digger. I recommend the Samson Lesche digger, but any good spade will do. You'll need a hand digger. You'll need a probe. This is for recovering very shallow targets or sometimes popping something out of the wall of the hole. Trust me, it comes in handy. I'll show you. You'll want a pinpointing device. It doesn't have to be a Garrett carrot. This is one of the best pinpointing devices there is, but any pinpointing device will do. The coil on the detector is going to get you within 8 inches. This will actually get you to the target. Having a pinpointer means recovering the target faster and moving less earth. Less earth you move, less mess you make. You'll want something to protect your knees with. Some detectorists will wear knee pads. I like a nice kneeling pad. I just carry it around with me. And finally, you want a drop cloth. This isn't for wiping yourself up after a dig. This is for catching dirt that you have to remove from a hole. If you have to pull dirt out of the hole, having a drop cloth gives you a place to put it, lets you bundle it all back up and put it right back in the hole without getting dirt all over somebody's lawn. The most important thing about recovering targets is to properly pinpoint the target before you even start to dig. If you dig a beautiful clean plug but the target is 6 inches away, you're going to end up making more of a mess than you wanted to. So learning to pinpoint is really good. Your detector will have a pinpointing mode on it. Learn to use it. If your detector doesn't have a pinpointing mode, you can use the old 90-degree turn trick. I'm going to show you that now. Alright, I'm coming along. I find a target. Okay, now I want to know where the target is. What I can do is put my coil beyond the target and slowly bring it back. And where I just start to hear it, it means the target's under the tail of my coil. Alright? Then I can turn 90 degrees and do it again. Start beyond the target and come back. And visually, in my head, I've drawn an intersecting line, and now I know the target is right there. Now I'm ready to do a recovery. Alright, let's go over the 4 different ways to dig a target. Okay, so this is recovery mode number 1 for deep targets, and this is called the half plug or 3/4 plug. Wherever your target is, we pinpointed it here, start a few inches away, like 3 or 4 inches, angle your shovel straight down, and go straight into the ground. Do not go in at an angle. Going in at an angle can sever the roots of the grass. Going in at an angle can also hit your target and damage it. And then you just work your way around the target, like this. Straight in, nice and neat. If the ground's a little sticky, just give your shovel a nice sideways rocking motion. Notice I'm not prying yet. You really don't want to pry too much. You don't want to pry too much because it deforms the ground and then it's a little messier getting it back in. And you want to go a little bit more than halfway around. Say 2/3 of the way around. Like that. Then you can return to the other side. Grab your kneeling pad and your drop cloth. There's our target. And pop your plug. Just gently seesaw it out of the hole. And then flip it up. Now the prevailing wisdom is that because a chunk of this plug is still attached to the grass, it will heal up better when you're done. There are people who dispute that, but this is the prevailing wisdom. If you ask the average detectorist, this is what they're going to tell you to do. Once you have your hole open, you would then take your detector and check first the plug and then the hole. Because sometimes your target will be in the plug. And a lot of detectors, when they're getting started, they'll go straight into the hole, they can't find the target, they give up, they put the plug back down, they go over it again, and then they can hear the target again. Once you've got a sense of where your target is, you can grab your pro pointer and zero in on the target. Now, instead of tearing this whole plug apart, we know pretty much exactly where the target is. And having done that, we can use either our digger or our probe to go into the plug right where the target is, or right next to it, and gently pop it out and retrieve it. Once the target's retrieved, you're going to fold this plug back down, pat it back down, and poke a couple holes in it for drainage. But, just as a reminder, if for whatever reason you had to remove dirt from the hole, you would just put down a drop cloth like this, remove whatever dirt you need to remove from the hole, either by spade or by hand, to get to your target, and keep it on the drop cloth. That way you can use your pro pointer to check the dirt you've taken out without making a mess. When you're done, you just pick up the corners of the drop cloth, take it back to the hole, release, give it a nice shake, and all the dirt's back in the hole, and there's nothing here. We didn't make a mess. Now that we've recovered the target, our wonderful pull tab, it's time to put this plug back down. Pull the grass out of the way a little bit, gently grab the plug, and tip it back into the hole. Once it's back in, give it a nice little pound. Pound it down. Don't go crazy, you just want to tap it into place. And also go around the outside edge of it, because you had to pry the soil up a little bit to get it out of there, and you want to put it all back in place. Once you've done that, poke a few drainage holes. This allows rainwater to penetrate into the plug, and you are done. Remember, when you dig a plug, always dig a deep plug. Don't dig shallow, you'll damage the roots. Shallow plugs, small plugs, they can dry out. They can get kicked out by someone stepping on them, they can get ripped up by animals, and they can get sucked up by lawnmowers. If you've got to dig, dig big. When you dig a big plug, it'll be heavy, it'll hold its moisture, and nothing's going to get it out of the ground once you have it seated back in there. The second method is just like the first method, except instead of going 3/4 of the way around or 2/3 of the way around, you just go all the way around and lift the whole plug out as one piece. That's not the prevailing wisdom. There are some people who say that folding the target up, folding the plug up actually damages the roots along the fold, and that it's better to go all the way around. But the prevailing wisdom is the 3-sided plug. That's all I'm going to show for digging deep. Next, we're going to talk about recovering shallow targets. It's important to remember that the depth gauge on your detector is calibrated for coin-sized targets. If your target is small, the detector is going to tell you it's deeper than it is. If your target's very big, the detector may tell you it's shallower than it is. It's always a good idea, once you've found approximately where the target is, before you dig, just take your pinpointer out and check. If the pinpointer can see the target from the surface, you might not need to dig at all. This target happens to be right on the surface, which means we can probably just recover it with a probe without even having to dig. When you have a surface target, the first thing to do is to just use the probe, pull the grass aside, get the probe under the thatch, which is the dead grass underneath, and just pull that thatch apart so you can see the surface. Then you would use your probe, your pinpointer, to zero in on where the target is, and then use your probe to actually find it by sinking the probe into the soil. If there's a coin there, the probe is going to stop. It's not going to be able to go all the way in. And so what you do is you move around until you find the coin. Once you find the coin, you simply move next to it, get underneath it, and gently pop it out of the ground. You see we're making such a tiny hole. That's a hole smaller than a chipmunk. Then you can pull your target right out of the hole without having to make a great big plug. This technique will work on decent sized coins. It'll work on pennies, it'll work on nickels, it'll work on quarters. It's a little iffy on dimes. And things smaller than dimes, you may end up making more of a mess trying to do this. If it's a really small coin, even if it's shallow, you might just want to dig a plug anyway. The last method is called the slit method. This is for when you have a target that's near the surface, but a little bit deeper, maybe 2 inches. You've got a general idea of where it is, but you can't just put your probe under it and pop it up because there's too much soil in the way. If you've pinpointed your target to be here, the way the slit method works is, once you've found the target with the probe, using either the probe or your shovel, just cut a slit in the grass. Anything can be used to make the slit. Your spade will probably work pretty good. This is a great system to use on grass that's particularly sensitive, where people don't really want you digging. Once you have a slit, you can then get your probe into the slit, get it under the target, and just pry the slit open like that. And usually the target will pop out right here on the tip of the probe. And then you can retrieve it. When you're done, you can just take the probe and just push the slit back in, just like that. Right back in. Give it a good thump with the end of the probe. Tap it with your fist. No harm, no foul. You got your target. Those are the 4 different ways to retrieve targets. Always remember, follow all the rules. Don't dig private property without permission. Always be conscientious, always be neat, and leave the ground looking better than when you found it. And don't skip these. Dig them. Some of them are going to be gold rings.